Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the opening day of playoffs for the Telia Esports Series of Finland. We're jumping on in for our first match. DeftFox are taking on PHZ. I'm Milky Cereal, and alongside me is Nymera. Nymera, are you ready for, some proper action out on the Rift?
Oh, I certainly am. I've been casting in a lot of different places this split, and this is my first stop off in the TESF, so I'm gonna have to be feeding some of those narratives from you and being like, "Ooh, yes, lovely bits of storyline." And from what I can tell, this one is a bit of a storied matchup because these two met in playoffs in the very last split, and they're at it again today.
Yeah, and for DeftFox, they finished second in spring. They made it to Telia Masters. They didn't do a fantastic job in groups, but they had a very hard group, all being said. They had Galaxy Racer in their group after all, who are now in NLC. But this split, it's been a bit of a change in tides. They've got the exact same scoreline in regular season compared to what they had in spring, but the difference is they topped the table and now are arguably favorites for playoffs.
Potentially, yes, because they took that 2-0 head-to-head over Nariki, who were coming into this split as kind of the juggernaut team, the team to beat, and they were beaten, of course. They took them down twice, not just that once. The team they're facing today, though, of course, PHZ, they can't say the same about, even though PHZ can come in as the 4th seed to playoffs, so they are the lowest of the upper bracket rung teams. They have that 1-1 head-to-head. In the last game of the regular season, in the very first game, they played against each other. The first one was a success for, of course, that team, but then PHZ took them down in the last game. It was with a support substitute. It was Yanako coming in for them rather than Hop Hop Junior, who has been playing for them the majority of this split. Speaking of those rosters, they're on screens. They were into draft. Do you want to introduce the teams, Milky?
Yeah, PHZ over on the blue side, DeftFox over on the red side. And we'll have to see what does come through for the two teams. PHZ, as you can see, completely finished team. I wonder if that helps maybe slightly in terms of communications. Well, for DeftFox, I think they're more than happy with where they sit as we have the Thresh ban as our first of picks and bans.
So Thresh really opens up playing through the bottom side of the map, playing stuff like, of course, Nemex and Hop Hop have been playing stuff like Kaiser Thresh. They've had some Aphelios bans thrown against them too. I'm not actually sure if they had a game of that in this season. On the other side, though, less about the bot side focus, more about Holla and having hands on the Fiora or other split pushes immediately taken away.
And when we were doing a bit of prep, we were talking a little bit about the split push threats that we might be seeing out on the Rift. And, well, Fiora, probably the most iconic when you think about split pushing. Gwen also taken away by the side of DeftFox.
Yes, so these are, of course, the Aurelia changes that, and the Gwen being so strong are more tier listy bans. We are seeing, though, in the first bans, a lot of target bans instead, though, which means that we're going to have it's level 11.14, so the Nocturne is less of a factor. But, we're still going to have champions like the Jinzao up and available. I know that Taiki plays a lot of weird stuff in the jungle. Play stuff like Camille, like Echo, Talia being thrown in there too. But lest we forget, Ziggs is a very powerful flex pick, and if that was picked up on red side, of course, that would empower DeftFox's draft to no end. And if you think that without a Thresh being able to play some of the pressure lanes, the Ziggs going down to the bot side feels pretty safe for PHZ now.
In fact, we've almost got to a point in the meta where at least I feel like Ziggs is seen more as an APC in the bottom lane than as a mid laner now. Viego, though, coming up as the answer, and you kind of mentioned the tier listy bans with the likes of the Gwen and the Aurelia. Viego feels like a similar champion in that regard.
Now, I'm trying to remember if Viego got even more hits on 11-14. Definitely was at some point in 11-13 or 14 on this one in terms of the healing that they get from minions nerfed again, which means that your laning presence is less felt. You are still going to regen up. Doran Shield is a really powerful item right now as well, particularly if you're into ranged matchups, where a lot of mages don't particularly like playing into Viego, because you auto-attack him once, and then he just queues the minions and starts like auto-attacking 3 times, gets all of that healing off of it, and the Doran Shield has healed them up for more than your auto did to them. But in this case, Taiki has had some games on the Viego into the jungle too. I would imagine that's going to be the primary position I'm looking at that to go into. And of course, having the Tristana too, you have 2 flexible picks locked in already, which opens up a lot of answers to flex around things and get yourself a preferential lane matchup. Oh, that's a special of Calico.
Well, you mentioned that. Well, you mentioned that Taiki likes to play some interesting things in the jungle. Well, Kaluka now picking up the Ivan. I do wonder that surely has to be heading into the jungle, right? Or are there some
It's
spicy
okay. No,
things
no,
you can be doing?
we haven't seen Ivan top since the start of the season. Really, I'm
Thank
not
God.
saying it's impossibility, but I believe actually again it might have even been in that last game of the regular split when these two teams faced off against each other. This was the Ivan jungle pick that was picked out, and I believe they actually ended up playing against the 11-13 Nocturne and winning with it. I believe that. I remember seeing one of the matches, so I'll bring it up in a second. But Ivern is a champion which gets right up into the enemy jungle very early and just messes you around. But something which is very strong in the early game and doesn't really have that many pre-level 6 counters is this LeBlanc, especially since the Lucian's off the table. There's no one really in the early game which can hold LeBlanc to account, so if you're going to start doing those weird jungle paths as the Ivern, you need to be careful of the mid-jungle 2v2 now.
The only kind of question that I do have regarding this LeBlanc and why I somewhat doubt it slightly is because there looked to be a lot of good flexibility for DeftFox composition, having the Tristana, having the Viego. But now that that LeBlanc has been locked in, you know that the Tristana's going bot, and now you know that the Viego's either going top or jungle.
You do. However, you know that you don't really want to play Ziggs into LeBlanc. Not necessarily. And on the bot side, you then see, okay, Nautilus Ziggs, Tristana can absolutely mash a Nautilus because if you jump here, because what really determines how strong lanes are against Tristana is can you cancel the jump, and a lot of the time the Tristana will jump into a Nautilus and drop the bomb, get the extra damage, and Nautilus doesn't really have that many counterplay options to it. I think that actually not banning away the Braum from the side of PHZ might have been an issue here because Tristana Braum is now an option which is both very good at peeling back and being aggressive in lane, pushes in that Ziggs even though you have a lot of that wave clear. So you know you have a good matchup into the Ziggs on the bot side, even though the Trist does have that flexibility to bring to bear. It has a strong laning matchup, and now with the Trist locked in alongside that Braum, as we were predicting, I think in mid and in bot, DeftFox have got themselves a very strong set of lanes.
Oh, Nymera, you're smurfing with the analysis. The Braum has come through. But with that Nautilus and the Ziggs as well, what we expect to see every single time Ziggs heads down into the bottom lane, the support to essentially just leave the Ziggs. Says, look, Ziggs, you got a lot of wave clear. I'm just going to let you do your thing. I'm going to go and roam. And now it's with an Ivan as well. Both champions having CC. And maybe they look towards this LeBlanc. Maybe they even look towards the top side of the map as well.
So the set's already locked in. And that is obviously something that can deal with something like a Braum who's put up the door in front of your team and just fling them into the enemy team. That's fun. They have a lot of... Oh, yes! I have not cast Riven in seasons, Milky. I was thinking...
Where's it going, though?
It's cool. That's gotta be a Riven mid, right? Is that Riven mid or set mid? I mean, okay, right, this is the point where I'm like... Oh, wait, hang on, wait, no, forget that. I forgot the nameplates, and I was like, wow, I'm just looking at these drafts with nameplates off. I mean, you have a split push top laner. The Fiora's gone. I mean, look at the amount of top... Look at the amount of top bans, right? But... This is a Hollow throwing down the gauntlet yet again. Of course, I've been doing that on the Fiora, the whole split amongst other picks. Picking up the Riven, I'm really excited to see this 1v1 mechanical player try to pop off against DeftFox.
And it's also looking like it might be set Nautilus bot. Okay, no, they're still switching around, so we'll wait until it is actually locked in. Let's talk about this top lane matchup because it's a Riven, so we kind of had to talk about it. But it's into a Renekton, so this feels like a very double-edged blade in the top lane.
Potentially. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen this matchup on a competitive stage for a while in solo queue. It is very swingy, and because it's a swing matchup, I look at that Ivan on the Rift and I'm like, okay, well, one of these junglers can get up towards top lane very early. They can mess with top lane in the same way that back in spring, when we had a lot of Udyr and we had a lot of Morgana, we had a lot of Hecarim as well in meta, it was at this point where you realize that Hecarim is great in so many different situations, but they can't mess with top lane early. Viego is not a champion that really wants to be going up towards that top lane early, whereas Ivan just has these weird jungle paths, can pull off the strangeness. And when you've also got yourself a Ziggs on the bot side of the map, which can stay at 1v2 in this lane, can continually wave clear, that allows Selfway to get towards the top too. I think it's a swingy matchup, but the pieces which are disconnected on the map for PHZ are probably going to work in Hollow's favor and against Weka.
Now, I do want to bring something in regarding the top lane matchup.
Go for it.
Because, you know our wonderful, colleague, Temporal, right?
Yes, I do, yes.
So, we had a cast not too long ago at actually BEA, and Temporal decided to do some scouting on a top lane main who was actually a Riven 1 trick. So he had a 1v1 against that top laner, and he actually played Renekton. So as soon as I saw this matchup, I started getting, you know, callbacks to that matchup.
Yeah.
The Riven 1, level 1. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that means anything, but I just thought there's some interesting exposition to give to this one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously having the Q3 parts at level 1 is very important for the Riven, and it's in the there was a really fun. Do you remember? Well, so speaking of another name within the scene, then of course you know Wicked, right? The very famous Aurelia main from back in the day, CLG top laner. Back in when he was, you know, playing the old Aurelia back in Season 3, Season 4, he used to have a really detailed guide of when does Aurelia beat Riven at these certain levels. Like, you lose at level 1, level 2 you start winning, level 3 it's a bit awkward again. Once you get these components, it starts going off the board and stuff like this. And that's kind of similar in this situation, right? Where Riven at level 1 does have more damage to bear, particularly with Conquer stacking up as well, being able to auto-cancel, not just for the extra damage, but stacking up the extra Conquer stacks too, is really important. Particularly if this is before the minions get into the lane too, because Renekton needs to have those empowered abilities, and needs to have access to the wave to get that rage up, to get those empowered abilities. If you do get free access to the wave, then the Renekton can start winning out with your hilariously strong burst trades with your empowered W, getting your Conquer stacked up pretty much immediately. Which is why I'm really interested to see this in the 1v1. It's double melees, it's double high damage burst early game champions.
Well, it will be a spicy matchup, and nonetheless, both junglers are actually starting on the opposite side of the map, but then again, Ivan thinks, so I don't really know if that means he's starting top side or he goes bot side to wait for his passive thing to like pop so that he can get his buffs. I don't know.
Something like that. Oh, gosh.
I've not played Ivan.
Yeah, I mean, so this is, like I said, with someone like an Ivan, you can just do whatever, really. He is going to be scouted on his second buff, right? So, he's put down the mark. He's going to, I'm not sure, yes, he's going to smite the immediate first buff, so then he's going to go straight around the rest of his jungle. I mean, this is where we really need Melvin as well on the broadcast, right?
Right.
That's because he's another person within our scene who's, of course, one of those good old one tricks. I know that feeling myself. And it's, I guess we've not seen any of the real spice come out of the early jungling path, which is, but we are going to see Ivan quickly pick up 2 buffs, get towards level 3, and be in a position to gank top lane. However, with the way that Taiki is just cleared straight from bot to top, there is a chance that Viego, even though he's not strongest on the front foot ganking, he could be counter-ganking a potential play for Kaluka up in the top side.
Yeah, and we are starting to see this mid lane matchup. And it's kind of what we expected. Every time Dragain looks to just jump in with the distortion, Artem will look to face breaker, try to get off a fake combo, and leave it at that. But if he misses that face breaker, then all of a sudden Dragain has this window where he can like maybe bully the set a little bit.
Oh, counter gang actually coming in mid. Very interesting. Chains drops.
Yeah, real chains are there. Kaluka just waiting just outside of vision to see if Dragain gets overly aggressive, but Dragain does not. And Taiki will make his way up towards the top Scuttle Crab to pick up the first Scuttle of the game.
So now with the Scuttle going down, that changes the top lane matchup a little bit, because then Hollow's now got the slow push going in. Well, I mean, what you would have liked to see is a slow push into a crash so they could secure that top Scuttle. That's not going to be the case. The wave's pushed out. It's going to be a gank.
That's the stun coming through, the call off the Meek as well. Hola will be able to run out to safety. Now the top lane is taking Ignite, so they don't have that little bit of extra aggression. They've gone with the teleports. They can make those roaming plays, which we know are so prevalent here in the Tele Esports Series Finland.
They are, but again, it's just a little bit of a disconnect between what PHZ wanted to achieve on the top side of the map, and now there's lots of angles for Taiki to wander into these top and mid lanes, and we're seeing that Kaluka is trying to play kind of disruption duty, and they're going towards mid again. Taiki is just all over this top side.
And I'm actually somewhat surprised that Artem went for the flash, knowing that Kaluka was so close as well. Decided to play it safe, not really sure exactly if that burst from Dragain and Taiki would be enough to pick up an early kill.
Okay, so now we're left wondering, okay. You're getting really not the best opportunistic trades on the top side. Mid lane is being held to account too, and bot lane individually has come up to quite a large lead already. Teleport's been blown, and yes, you're going to have the Ziggs being able to wave clear at some point. Because this happened so early, because of, however, that they've had to teleport back, they're in a really dangerous spot now, and Hollow's in a dangerous spot topside.
Yeah, Ola took a tower shot, and Taiki is here as well. Surely there's no way out for the Riven. The Ivan making their way up. It's a flash.
Oh!
Cloud. The first blood comes in for the Riven, and the Triumph stacks as well. Taiki will fall. Kaluka picks up the second kill, and a PHZ pick up the first 2 kills of the game.
Oh, it's the enemy team's solo queue, Riven. You go for the 2v1, and the turnaround is magnificently played by Holla on that top side, and PHZ find themselves their top side lead.
I'll be honest, Nightmare. I only thought Darius and Elawis could do these kind of 1v2 shenanigans.
I mean, I've played for a fairly long time at this point, and I remember in Season 5 when we saw the world's best top laners playing this champion, and some of those players have been engraved into my memory. And this is so important to bucking the trend of what had happened early on. Like we were saying, this Riven, a little bit disconnected from what happened in terms of the early wave dives. And what we saw in this 1v1 matchup is, okay, Renekton has a wave to dash through, has the empowered abilities, but it doesn't mean that you can start waiting for the second cooldown of the Riven E to come through. I really want to see what happens with the auto cancel. Yeah, he uses the E, goes into the immediate Q W cancel there, gets a load of those empowered
He's
autos
just
through.
stunned forever.
He's stunned for forever. That's what you get with the W, the key burst coming through.
I did not realize that stunned for so long. I swear. I mean, Taiki, it just felt like, you know, like Greyhound racing. He just felt like one of the Greyhounds just waiting for the cage to open. He's like, let me go.
Yeah.
Never allowed out.
Yeah. And as much as Taiki has made a lot of good advances into these individual lanes, I mean, we were immediately saying, yeah, Diego doesn't really want to be doing that much early in terms of ganking. Yeah, he's been holding the lanes to account. But that was just a little bit of an overreach. I think he kind of played his cards a little bit too early at that point because you want to be using that pressure into getting the CS leads so then you can get up to level 6, get up to your first item,
right,
and start pressuring out lanes. I feel like they just overplayed their hand a little bit too early into the game.
Well, now both top laners are level 6. So Taiki, well, he's been ganking mid, he's been ganking top, he's been trying to make things work. And now he's looking towards the Drake, but he will be spotted out by Kaluka, who doesn't have a flash, but there is a blast cone. Taiki is low, but there is nothing that will contest him, and the first Drake of the game will go the way of DeftFox.
Okay, so the early jungle pressure is paying off in some way for DeftFox at this point. We're going to get in level 6, and we can see what happens when... this is one of the reasons why LeBlanc is so much in meta right now. It just does very well at punishing melees. Set is one of the hardest ones to punish, so you're not really going to get kill threat, but you do have a lot of wave control. You can start leading off with a lot of QW trades too, which you can't really deny, as we saw that the face breaker is one. It's quite inconsistent at denying the LeBlanc. So at least Dragain is getting something as well from the early pressure, which Taiki has put down in the top side of the map.
And I personally really like seeing LeBlanc in the meta. I really like being able to see
it's very
it
fun
out
to see.
on the
Very
Rift.
fun to see.
Yeah, because to me it's kind of like having an Akali in the sense that you've got an assassin, but with LeBlanc it's a lot more obvious how she's going to play. With something like an Akali, there's, you know, a whole bunch of different things that you can do to be able to pick up a kill. Whereas LeBlanc, you know, okay, this is what that LeBlanc wants to do every single time.
Oh, bot lane's roaming up. Ziggs is just left alone in bot. 2-2 gets to mid.
The real chains coming through. The CC as well. The Haymaker will buy some time, followed by the Showstopper. The Hopper forward, and Artem will forge again. Picks up the kill, and getting those kills onto the LeBlanc is probably what you want if you are DeftFox.
And you can see what PH said. We're attempting to do exactly what we said from draft. Disconnect Selfwave from the Ziggs because they're going to be safe in lane. Well, yeah, that's great and all, but if he's still shoved in because the Tristana is permanently shoving in, the 2v2 can start roaming up at that point. At that point, Ziggs is left alone on the bot side, no way to respond. They get into that mid, and now actually Ziggs caught out on the bot side.
There might be another rocket jump, and indeed it comes through. Flash away from Amirali, and Namex will just walk out of tower. Or pardon me, the flash from Amirali, but Namex still has that flash available, and this Ziggs might become a bit of food for a Taiki dive later on.
This is exactly what... Oh, okay, going for the ult there, just trying to chunk out the Tristana, maybe trying to dissuade another all-in, but with the flash and with the heal there, I still don't think he's safe. With the wave pushing in, potential for kills in this bot lane.
Namex, well, I was wondering if he's going to try to hold the wave, but in the end he clears the wave out. He's going to use this as an opportunity to get a reset. When we do look at the CS discrepancies and where the gold is lying, you know, there are CS discrepancies in pretty much every lane. Is going well for Namex and Weka in the bot and top lanes respectively. Oh, and Dragain, so all lanes is going fairly well in that regard.
Yeah. And of course, like Triss Braum, I mean, we kind of called that as soon as the Triss is locked in. It's like, okay, you can ban away the Nautilus, you can ban away these other things, but Triss Braum is a really nice combo, and it has turned out to be very strong in that 2v2 sense. Then, yeah, I mean, what's really ended up, like, exacerbating this is, of course, what Taiku's doing in the early game. It's no... Well, I mean, early game's over. Guess we're fighting.
You'd think that there's a Drake up that they're fighting over in the river, but the Drake's not up for another 2 minutes. This is just... It's the casual, you know, one side moving from one part of the rift to the other. They spot the other team, and, you know, instead of just having a casual wave and being on with their way, they decide to, you know, just have a little fight.
Ults in the top side.
Well, Weka does use the Dominus, and Ola is more than happy just to dance his way out of it.
Cool. He just kind of puts the ambience on with the Dominus, making him very angry, getting all of that rage. Doesn't really lead to anything though. Maybe Weka kind of seeing a play which wasn't really there, or maybe just had to call it off when he saw that members were roaming topside from PHZ. Got pressure on the bot side to respond though. Roam towards the top side, answered in kind towards the bot. That's a hook under turret. There's no aggro to really punish that positioning.
Yeah, Namix just ignores the self-way hook. And this is all just giving it time for Namix just to get more tower plays. He uses the heal. That's really aggressive. He's going to take another tower shot. Satchel Charge will not be able to cancel the rocket jumper from Namex. The Unbreakable just denies a little bit of Pokemon Mirani.
I mean, what baited Tristana into going in there is like, hey, the bomb on tower damages everything around it. Awesome! And Selfway takes a load of damage. And that is going to lead to a potential dive after this point. They still have the Nautilus ult.
The Rift Herald has been dropped. When is the next wave? Ethereal Chain's coming through in the mid lane, but the action is on the bottom side of the map. Nemix just waiting for Shelly to charge. Now he can step forward. Now he can look towards Selfway. Concussive Blows comes through. The depth charge. Namex able to flash over the wall and out to safety. Bartum is here. Namex will fall. The showstopper comes through. Pulls in Taiki, who's able to use a Heartbreaker over the wall and out. So far, it is just the 1-for-1 ADC for support. Surely that's in favor of PHZ.
It is, and honestly, it's a bit of an unforced error. Now there's the ult, Broken Wings.
Ethereal Chains come through. A second Ethereal Chain as well. The Dragon will just walk on out.
So yeah, I mean, that's now the, you know, the Blade Reforged used by Hola, and looking for a play again. Both these top laners getting a bit touchy, but in the spot side, once again, we see Namex taking aggro from the turret. You have a support that's pretty tanky to do that for you, and with the Triss dying, no more wave clear. Well, I mean, that means that Triss is, of course, losing waves. They are, however, going to use this opportunity to go towards topside and use their demolition abilities, try and take some plates up there.
And that whole dive on the bottom side of the map, it felt like it could have been good for DeftFox, but it feels like they took so long to actually do it.
Yeah.
That it just gave time for PHZ.
Because there is a certain amount of decisiveness you need to pull off with that. Okay, sure, 1v1 versus top laners, most of the time Trist feels pretty okay about that. Used to being a solo laner. Maybe not a Riven. Be glad they don't have the ultimate this time.
Like, do you remember when the that League cinematic came out and it was Draven fighting Riven in the pit and all of the comments were
the Awakening cinematic.
Yeah, it was like classic ADC thinking that they can 1v1 melee a Riven. Yeah, good job, Draven.
The hilarious thing is right now is that Draven's actually been played in solo lanes in solo queue. Took a couple of years for it to be more of a thing. Well, Riven wants to be picking off those AD carries again. Got friends to do it with this time.
That's a flash stretch line coming in, and now Holla says, really? You want to fight me? What about when I have my friends? Didn't think so. Picks up the kill, an extra 300 gold going over onto Holla's Riven.
The rallying cry goes up in the top side of the map once again, and the Riven gets themselves a second kill. Taiki looking for something here. I don't really think the set with the W up is the target you want, though. DeftFox struggling to make clean plays, struggling to make plays, even though they've been decisive about it. They're struggling to stick the landing on a lot of what they're doing, and what that's meant is that when they've been trying to throw out this net to catch out players under towers and across the map, PHZ have been picking up a lot more gold. Holla does have the ult, doesn't have the teleport to respond though. This is a bad fight for PHZ.
Well, DeftFox are looking to finally make something happen. Ethereal Chains will connect. Surely they get the kill, and Selfway will fall. The Glacial Fissure will come through. A tower charge as well. Satchel charge to follow. But is there the potential turnaround? Artemis slowly making his way up as the Winter Spike connects onto Kaluka. That's a slow coming through from Daisy. But I think that will be all that she wrote in the top lane.
And I'm not going to lie. Obviously, we've been watching this. I mean, it's still technically early game at this point. It's been very frantic. And it's been a lot of thinking on your feet, but I'm not really sure how many of these plays have been planned out that far in advance. As we can see, it feels like a lot of these decisions, particularly coming from DeftFox in terms of their dives and stuff like that, are kind of not fully formed, I guess. I'm interested to see what's going to happen when they hit the mid-game. I think they need to settle down a bit. Of course, the first game of the series, first time on stage today. And they're going to have to really start cleaning up what they're going for, because every time they go for one of these plays, if you give over more gold to this Riven, or even, heck, even this Ziggs, right, as we can see, has been turning around a lot of damage, even this early into the game, you can get very heavily punished for that.
Ooh, Hex Flash stretch line, almost onto Namex, but we are 15 minutes into the game, and, you know, this is the point where you'd say the early game has come to a close. This is where, you know, the CS difference at a certain minute has ended, right? Because the early game, the laning phase has drawn to a conclusion.
Oh, Hook doesn't miss this time.
Line. That connects. That's that charger. Pulls Namex in. Sadly, it's Selfway who gets the kill, but PHZ will take the kill onto the ADC regardless.
And one of the facets of playing such a frantic back and forth cross-map early game is that your net of vision will not start catching people because, you know, the accepted run of play starts changing quite drastically, right? Their Selfway is off the map, and yes, they did show themselves a little bit earlier, but Namex just not respecting that the Nautilus could be there again. Becker at least does towards that bot side and gets out from under turret. He's still going to be losing a wave to it.
And Hollup will be just chipping away at this bottom lane outer tower. Weka is here and should be able to collect this wave. But Selfway is making his way back down. I don't know if you want to dive over a Renekton who has Dominus.
Potentially not. No, not the most wise thing ever, but they would love to chunk them out for free if they could. However, still a minute towards Dragon. What the follow-on of this will be is that they were just trying to get themselves some deep vision, and they have set that up. You've got 2 pink wards in enemy territory which have not been scanned out. You have a teleport coming out for the Riven, and we know the Riven is really strong right now.
That's a lot of damage. A Glacial Fissure. Is this the all-in? Surely not Namex. Takes so much damage from that tower shot.
And this is a much more significant chunk. Kind of given for free. The Tristana, been called out several times, now losing a lot of their HP, is not going to be in prime position to fight off this dragon. Now at this point, you look at one more skill shot from the Ziggs landing, and DeftFox are probably finding themselves in a position where they can't fight for this dragon.
So let's break this game down with where we currently are, because we're 17 minutes in. The gold is pretty even. You know, we're talking about 500 gold between the two sides. But the key thing for me is Dragain's got that Luden's Echo. He's 1-0. He's got a few stacks on the Dark Seal.
Got the boots too. You know, this is like the big pen burst from Dragain. Very strong.
And surely for Dragain, if he can get onto Amirali, because that's his only real target. You're not going to blow up a set. You're not really going to blow up the Riven. I don't know if you can blow up an Ivan, though.
I mean, at this point in the game, with the amount of gold you've got, you can certainly chunk people out. Again, we would... The question is because with the Blanc, and this has kind of been the case for as long as there is existence, there is a point where you have so much burst, it's no longer poke trades when you jump in for like QE trades. It's an assassination one-shot kind of trade, especially when you have the Mimic available too. I think, yes, of course, Ziggs is going to be the main target, but with the vision that's been afforded to PHZ from particularly the Riven pushing into the Renekton and having this winning side lane matchup, there aren't that many angles of attack that Dragain can find. I'm wondering at what point then, because I would expect actually maybe they go towards the Void Staff second now, so they can chunk through someone like the Set or the Ivern or the Riven, hold them in place with chains so the Triss can start firing them down. Like, I wonder if that's the game plan. At what point does that break point become something that DeftFox can play around? Because right now, as we're saying, kind of hard to find those angles.
And you mentioned that vision control, and DFX, or pardon me, DeftFox have to be smart about their vision control. They have to make sure that Dragain has a way into the backline, because if all of, you know, it's like when you play against a Fiddlesticks. If you know where the Fiddlesticks is, you aren't going to be able to get that rogue glorious engage, right?
For sure. And, I mean, what the engage options for you are not that heavy for DeftFox. They're going to have to play around map pressure. They're going to have to play around the objectives. Where on the other side, you've got Ivern Qs, you've got Nautilus Qs, and the follow-up from both of them, of course, leads into the Ziggs. It feels like PHZ have themselves a few more throwaway tools which can lead to much bigger advantages, rather than DeftFox is more constrained, will fight you around this area of the map because the map demands it.
But right now, the game slowing down just a little bit. It's actually nearly a 2k gold advantage to DeftFox now. I swear, about a minute ago, we were saying it was about 500 gold, but a couple of towers have fallen in DeftFox's favor.
Oh, that's the wonders of capitalism right there. Yes. I don't know where I was going to follow on with that. I was like, yes,
I
the
didn't know
gold
what
lead is
I was like,
expanded.
I was just thinking, that's kind of entertaining. And then I thought, wait, how does that actually work?
Stonks go up. That's what I know about economics. So I play Milky. I play video games. Don't trust me to know anything about actual numbers.
Right, okay. I mean, I thought you were the reference guy, so, once you dropped the reference, I was like,
True.
that's another smart reference from
True.
Nightmare, and I was like,
No,
is
you
it?
see, this is the long game. This is the long game. Where
Right.
I put a couple of references down, and then I'll just start saying something which is completely disconnected from anything. And just see if
Okay.
anyone just sees if I'm being clever. That's the reputation I've got of myself, and Hop is going to hop away from that potential collapse. Oh, Namax dodges out on the hook.
He does, and now he rocket jumps out to safety. DeftFox will not die just yet. I'm looking to see, what kind of objectives can we
it's a
fire
big
for.
kick.
Oh, we can go in, full Stealthway, the Heartbreaker in, picks up the kill, the flash forward, Glacial Fissure onto 2, Artemis a focus as the suplex comes through, pulls in Hop Jr., but Artem's been locked down as back in goes Wecker, eats a chunk of damage to the face courtesy of the Haymaker, but it is just that one kill for nothing in favor of DeftFox.
Okay, so Artem and Kaluka doing really well at playing Disrupted, playing the rearguard action at that point to secure themselves a retreat. However, the Baron is spawned, it's on the table. DeftFox might have found their objective to force the fight.
And Dragain's looking to go in, won't connect the ethereal chains onto Holla, but he will go. Holla will go in onto Taiki, but he's bitten off more than he can chew. Dragain picks up the kill and is now 2-0 on the LeBlanc. The flasher forward, and Taiki lands the crowd control. It's a double kill for Dragain, and DeftFox just starting to snowball their lead more and more.
I mean, I think DeftFox have found their engage. You take it from the dead Nautilus. You take it from the corpses.
No.
And Selfway is going to be walking up again. Luckily, there's a minefield, but Selfway is not getting out despite that.
Selfway will just get engaged on. Depth Charge will find a 2-man knockup. You can dredge line towards, you can run, but you cannot hide. Dragain picks up his 4th of the game.
And he can run, but he can't run nearly fast enough. That didn't end up being a sprint away from the fight. Turned into a little bit of a marathon as DeftFox couldn't quite close him down very quickly. At least for PHZ, they don't give up an objective. They don't give up the Baron, they don't give up a Dragon, and because DeftFox have had to reset before this fight, they're not going to be at the Dragon in as much force as they could have been. On the other side though, Selfway also going to be delayed getting towards the Dragon pit. So PHZ fighting an uphill battle if they want to claim this Dragon. Gonna go back towards the replay of what happened in kind of the secondary chase at this point. Holla really wanting to go in for this fight, does get the blind knockup, but you're also jumping into the one person who's got the immediate point-and-click stun. I mean, one of two, I guess, because the Renekton's got his W2. Just gets stunned in place. Riven's real tankiness comes from getting multiple E's out, getting multiple shields. Not so much as he had multiple shields. Only got the one. Not sure if it's enough.
Oh, the Heartbreaker comes through. Taiki got very low. Meanwhile, I think we might be getting an engage on the top side of the bottom river. That's going to be the root caller. Just locking down Hop Jr. momentarily, but it's a 5v4 and a Drake up. Dragain, he's stepping forward. He's feeling like he's got the damage, and just whenever he wants, he can just return back to his clone, or return back to the starting point, and he's out safely.
That is. So, even though the early game was a little bit worrying from
Yeah.
DeftFox, right? You know, when... That play, all right? Almost with the steal weapon for the 6, but
Gotta go for
we
it.
were worried about what was happening on the top side of the map, the early double kill, but you can see what's happening with Holla. He's, whereas he was pushing in, making sure the Renekton couldn't really respond to plays, was allowing his team to have, like, some very... I mean, this is kind of like what the definition of tempo is, right? Where it's not just about playing the speed of the map, it's about cutting down the amount of options your enemy has. And with the Riven winning the side lane matchup so hard, then the DFX were running out of options. And then they just break open the playbook and say, well, all we need to do is fight around the objectives. One pick onto someone with great basic abilities means that the Viego gets to use them immediately on the return. And DeftFox have blown open this mid game after a shaky early game where they were put under a lot of pressure.
This is why I really like to see LeBlanc as well, because you can kind of tell when it started going well for DeftFox. You know, as soon as Dragain got that Ludens and he picked up the Sork Boots, as you mentioned, that Magic Pen, all of a sudden he's doing work. And sure, he was 1-0 at the time, but now he's 4-0, and that's just the power of the LeBlanc that can kick it.
And it's, yeah, the thing with the LeBlanc too, in even compared to stuff like the Viego and the Silas, which have been so big in the mid lane, is that you have an unparalleled ability to just cross walls and get across the map. Your ability to just turn up from various different spots and get to the play quickly is so unparalleled. Hop Jr. would like to not get into this play, though. He'd like to get out.
Well, let's see how quickly Dragain can get to this fight. Not quite quickly enough. Amirali picks up the kill, and there will be no collapse from DeftFox. It's a free pickup for PHZ.
But what's it going to lead to? You've got waves pushing. Oh, the flasher kick once again. Barely missing out on their target.
That's what it could lead to.
Potentially. You can see, actually, Subway's got themselves the Anathema's Chains. They've got themselves the extra ability to deny some of that tenacity from one chosen enemy carry. If they'd landed that, they would have been locked out for forever. I'd choose the first person forward. I'd choose Namex most of the time because they've been caught out, but they need to start responding now. And let's see if that will work on the fight this time.
Keep an eye on Dragain. He wants to go in. Weka's going to go in. He's doing so much damage now. Dragain shows up, picks up one kill, and it is a 1-for-1 so far. Top lane full support. Flash forward. Root Caller denied by Taiki, just about dashing out of the way. But crucially for DFX, they deny the Baron.
They do, and this has kind of been a tale of two picks onto opposing supports. Of course, first it was Selfway, and then the turnaround hook from the Viego clone, or not the clone, the stolen corpse. It was very important for DeftFox to get themselves into a winning position. On the other side, Hop Jr. goes down, and there was another Baron start. The Baron is the name of the game. It started up again, and Dragain has found Artem.
Dragain has found Artem.
Oh, get this.
However, yeah, very good satchel charge from Amirali just to buy a bit of space for his mid laner. But right now, both teams, it kind of feels like they're feeling each other out. You know, we're still seeing a couple of kills here and there, but it hasn't been, you know, that full explosive 5v5. It just feels like there's a little bit of hesitation.
Yeah, and I guess it was more apparent in the early game when we saw, like, the dives half pulled off from DFX, and then, you know, some strange plays around the top side of the map as well, when we saw that, you know, the Riven kind of get caught out a little bit and have to get back off from the wave. In the mid game, though, now that, you know, more items are available, suddenly those missteps which could have led to, oh, it's a chunk in lane, the back top towards tower, leading to, actually, this is one pick into Baron. You see that both teams have that on the table. And it's been very interesting to see, because, of course, there is no soul point held over the other team's head, because we've got 2 dragons apiece at this point. Very interested to see where the hammer blow is going to fall next, because it's been threatening to do so for the last 5 to 10 minutes at this point.
And I want to look at things from PHZ's perspective, because DFX are undeniably ahead. You know, they're 4k gold up. Dragain is huge on this LeBlanc right now, but what do PHZ want to do if they want to get back into this game? Who are they playing around? What are their objectives when it comes to setting up for fights?
So I'm not going to lie for a second. I was like, I want to look from their perspective, and like, I mean, do you want Telia Pro View? I'm down for that. Like, yeah, I'll watch their POV from their screen. But of course, yeah, going back on slightly more serious topics. I know it's hard for us. I know that's not really our comfort zone.
I mean, I'd want Holler's Pro View, to be honest, on that Riven.
Absolutely,
Spicy, right?
Yeah. I love seeing people play mechanical champions that I don't have the hands for. This is why I play Ari, by the way. But what do they want to be doing?
Ari needs hands, come on.
Again, what they're really looking for is, again, just the miracle hook. They have the throwaway CC. What happens if you get the Root Caller into the dredge line? Well, I mean, you do have a 2-item, but going on 3 now, from the Ziggs. If Ziggs lands the full combo after that point, that is one carry completely nuked. That is always a play pattern they have. On the other side, LeBlanc has some ability to jump forward, but you can see, with the turnaround CC, LeBlanc doesn't have the shooting gallery she's used to in this meta right now.
And Dragain keeps on stepping forward, trying to find the picks. But Amirali just seems so huge, being able to just zone away, using the Hexplosive Minefield, using the Satchel Charge. But now DeftFox
on the side.
The Drake's on 4,000. Taiki looking to flank, but he just can't get close enough. Amirali throwing out the bombs from far away. Hop Jr. drops down. The Glacial Fish are going to be able to find 2. Watch out for Dragain. He's just sitting behind the wall, waiting for the optimal moment to go in. Dragain already able to find 1. Now he's going back on in, looking towards Artem. Double distortion comes through. The phase breaker in. The focus comes onto Dragain. He pops back out. Namex finds 1 onto Artem. Selfway is the next focus. The rocket jump forward, and Namex picks up the double kill. It's 3 kills for nothing. Patiently played by DeftFox and clinically played as well.
And they run roughshod through the battle lines of PHZ, as you called out during that fight. Dragain just sitting on the side, and Amirali looks at that and says, I ain't having anything to do with that. The Zig starts backing off, and suddenly the front line doesn't have its artillery follow-up to determine the outcome of that fight. They lose themselves the dragon, they lose themselves the fight, and DeftFox clinically, as you say, just tear apart and put PHZ under the scalpel. Gonna go back into a replay of that, actually. Sorry for cutting off into that one, but as you can see, at this point, as opposed to earlier into the game, LeBlanc is able to get off a vision, find those areas with that unparalleled wall-crossing ability, and Amarali is just having to back off. They don't get to be that backline damage threat with the range that they're so used to. And the Tristana, completely untouched. You can see the difference in backline pressure between these two teams. And yes, Artem does a good job of getting a face breaker, getting themselves their AoE damage, but it's not enough at this point in the game. The damage is done, but the backline is in a superior position for DeftFox.
And we talk about being able to have that vision control, you know, so that you know where Dragain's coming from. And was that just literally for PHZ not having taken the right steps before the Dragon, not having said, okay, Dragain can come from here, here, and here. Have we made sure that we have vision around these areas?
Well, the problem with that is that you can only have so many wards in the game, Milky.
Very
when
true.
You're not being able to push it in as you would like, you don't really get to go into Fog of War against a 24 Magi stack LeBlanc and expect that to go well. That's what happens!
God! Dragain are popping off. Amarali, the next focus. PHZ, they wanted to deny the Baron. They wanted to turn out the Baron pit. But DeftFox will take the Baron, and DeftFox will take the kills as well. Holler goes a pop. Rocket jumper forward from Namex. DeftFox are not done yet. The suplex in, but it matters not one jot. Artem will fall as well, and DeftFox are 5 members strong against 1 puny support. Selfway, well, he's going to have to do it just by himself, and I don't think there's any way he can 1v5 defend. It may have been a shaky start for DeftFox, but it was not a shaky mid-game. DeftFox pick up game 1 against PHZ.
The hammer blow finally falls, and it comes from the mid laner. Just as we were talking about it, you can't expect to go into Fog of War to take these dangerous roads into the shadow of war and expect things to go well. Dragain finds their target, finds several targets, gets the massive double distort across it, I believe I saw there. Ridiculous fight, no deaths from that LeBlanc, even against the threat of the Nautilus Hook and the Root Caller. They were too slippery, they were too deft and too deadly, and DeftFox take the first game.
So here's a replay of that final fight, because I didn't see how Dragain got that first kill.
I mean, it just gets the double distort. That's a 3-man double distort. You know, one of my favorite historical plays in League of Legends was when a player by the name of Kerp for the Millennium team got the double distort onto 4 people to just win a whole game just of one singular play. That felt like very singular vibes. Just wasn't tracked by the side of PHZ, but they didn't have an option. They had to stop that Baron, and Dragain slips through the net.
This game was Dragain's game, right? You know, this was Dragain stepping up for DeftFox and Dragain saying, guys, you give me the LeBlanc, I will carry. And he did. And you mentioned how that was one of your, you know, your favorite moments of League was seeing a LeBlanc pull that off. I always remember back to...
That was like a Season 3 play, by the way. Season 3-4. It's been a while, but Kerp was really good back in the day.
One of my favorite games, and one of actually my favorite fight casts was, it was G2 back when Perks was playing for G2. And I think this was a split where Perks and Cap switched back around. Perks was playing mid, and he was playing on LeBlanc. And I just remember, I think it was Medic just saying, watch Perks, watch Perks. And Perks was literally doing exactly what Dragain was. He was just sitting behind that wall,
being the knife in the dark.
Waiting. Exactly.
You know, you don't always have the consistent damage of a Cassiopeia or Orianna, but you have the ability to direct it towards the targets that need to be there. And we saw the difference between the safety of the backline carries for these two teams, and Dragain really just planted the dagger.
Yep. Got the dagger right in the back, you know, it was a really big dagger, you know, like at Yoshimitsu where
at that point,
you can hit multiple people with it.
At that point, it's like a Zweihander.
Sweeping through the entire team, but that is game 1 coming to a close. DeftFox take the win, and now they can look for the clean 2-0 against PHZ. We're going to be jumping into a short break, but we'll be back momentarily for our second game of the day.